You think by now we'd be through with this. You think by now we'd have this thing figured out. This one hurts a little different. Oh, something's different this time. Oh, yes, it is. Something's different this time. Oh, I know something's different this time. This time. Oh, something's different this time.
Ladies and gentlemen, that intro track is from Grammy-nominated songwriter Alvin Garrett, who has given me exclusive permission to use his music for this roundtable. For that, I want to acknowledge and thank him. You can find that song, Something's Different This Time, on all streaming platforms, and you can follow his musical journey on his website, alvingarrett.com. With that, let me first thank everyone for tuning in tonight for part 2 of our State of Current Events Roundtable here on Infotainment News. I'm your host and moderator, James Hicks. Today's panel consists of another great cross-section of society: women, mothers, and people of different nationalities and ethnicity. The goal for tonight, similar to the last session, have a constructive dialogue, share stories, discuss, debate, all that. But at the core, be respectful to each other and ultimately work to help everyone realize that they can play a part in this much needed dialogue and make their voices and actions relevant for positive change. Now let the roundtable introduce themselves. I'm going to ask, as I bring them on one at a time, everyone to give their name, their location, and occupation. We'll start with you.
Okay. I'm Jennifer Hicks. I am James' wife, and I am a mom of Jordan and Isaiah. I'm an educator, and I'm located in California.
Thank you, Jen.
Hi. Oh, I'm okay. Natasha Hill. I have 2 sons, Emmett and Xavier. I'm a human resources professional and live in Kennesaw, Georgia, which is just about 30 miles north of Atlanta.
Awesome. Thanks, Tosh. I love the Spellman that you're rocking in the background. I will say that.
Hey, my name is Marvin, in Sacramento, California. I'm an aircraft mechanic and had to bring my old fart buddy here.
Oh my gosh.
2 old guys. And I'm
yourself.
I'm Scott, again, Sacramento. I'm 66, retired.
Love it. I love it. Thank you, Scott, for joining.
Good evening, everyone. My name is JJ Raymond. My wife Carly and I, we're in Orange County, Southern California. And currently we work for Crew. It's a college campus Christian ministry, and primarily looking through the Bible through the lens of ethnicity and culture and how to fight for oneness. So excited to be here. Thanks, James. Looking forward to it.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you. And so everyone that's watching the stream, I see the comments coming through. Definitely keep those coming. I've put together a few questions, right? I've got 3 questions I'd like to present to everyone. You know, we'll let the discussion flow as it naturally will. I'll be in the background watching time and keeping us as much on track as possible. If we go 20 minutes per question, that'll kind of give us the opportunity to let our East Coasters go to bed at an early time, right? We won't be on too long. So be cognizant of other folks that are in the East Coast, right? Does that make sense?
Yep.
Awesome. So
I should know
let me,
that. I was just going to say, I
what's
should
that?
know that Toby's head might pop in every once in a while if he has a comment too.
You know what? Put him on camera. He can definitely join the discussion. So let's start with this, you guys. Protests, as we know, are happening everywhere, literally globally, in support of civil justice and people tired and frankly disgusted with police using excessive force and overstepping bounds. What are you seeing in your area in regards to these protests? And I've got to start ladies first, and I got to start with the boss in the house. So we'll see. Hey, don't start nothing, Marvin. Yeah, I got to start with Jen first. So
I didn't say anything. I wasn't.
So I think something that I'm noticing in our community is that it seems to be a lot of youth are gathering and really leading the protests. In fact, Jordan, our daughter who's 18, told me yesterday about a protest that her friends were organizing over by the mall. And so I did a drive-by, and I was an obnoxious honking at them and giving them some encouragement. But one of the things I've just noticed, just looking at different social media posts, is that we have a lot of youth in our community that are really rallying and really leading and organizing some of the protests.
right, that makes sense. We have a new entrant into the panel, and I definitely want to give her the opportunity to as well state name, occupation, and location. Callie, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you? I'm Callie
Fantastic.
Tisdale. I live in Sacramento, and I'm a photographer in the area.
Since I got you on camera and on screen, we just started kind of with going over with the questions, and you see question number one on there. What are you seeing in your area in regards to the protests that are happening? Are you seeing a different age or different demographic in terms of who's showing up, or are you even seeing anything in where you are?
In Sacramento, I feel like it's pretty much all ages, but I feel like a lot of it is the younger generation for sure, just like Jen said. I totally agree with that. More than like the older people, but I feel like that we had gone to a few in Sacramento, and it was a pretty wide range of ages, I felt like.
Interesting. Tosh, what about you? I'm interested to hear what's going on in the Atlanta area.
Atlanta's been interesting, I think. So as I said, I live in the suburbs, so I'm not right downtown Atlanta. Probably you've seen a lot of what's going on in downtown. It's been all ages, all races, but it's been equally, I think, prevalent in the suburbs. So even in Kennesaw, which is a pretty largely white middle class neighborhood, we've had several walks and gatherings for protest. I wouldn't call them even protest. It's awareness. It's we're here and we have a voice and we want to be heard. I can agree with Jen to some degree that I'm pleasantly surprised that there's a lot of youth out there. But I will also say, looking at some of the Atlanta video, and I'm looking at the same stuff that you're seeing on the nightly news, there's some pieces of it where it almost feels like it's a party versus a purpose. And I think that's it's something that I don't know how I feel about that yet.
Yeah. So before we go further, I mean that brings up an interesting dynamic, and I understand what you mean by that, but who is contributing to that? I mean, is it are you seeing the younger generation? Are you seeing folks our age? I mean, who's there that's making it look like a party? Who's turning it into? I hate to say this, a freaknik, right? Because again, you're in Atlanta, so I'll bring that up. But who's doing that?
It's folks that don't have leadership. I'm not at all doubting their genuineness in caring about the cause and really being interested, but there's a lot of sort of I want to be seen versus there being a purpose to the message, the outcome. And I think Toby's voice on the side here, he said it's the younger folks that don't that are still learning. They know that there's a struggle. They know that it's important, but they don't know how to act on it yet.
Makes sense. So they're opportunists, right? As opposed to understanding that there should be some method to being out there and protesting and throwing the fist up and doing whatever, as opposed to just an opportunity to get out in the middle of the street and make some noise.
Yeah.
That's
And I
unfortunate.
think some people, it's just like a trend too.
Well, right now, I think a lot of it's also Juneteenth celebration going on. So it's probably a mixture of both. So once Juneteenth is over, it may get serious again.
So go deeper into that, man, because I was going to go actually to you and Scott next. So why do you think? So if we had this session yesterday, do you think, or did you see in your area folks out protesting, talking to their neighbors, talking to their society about let's make a difference, let's make a change, or were they just out because it's fashionable to be out right now with their camera and taking a picture saying Black Lives Matters or whatever the case may be? Because it's an interesting thing, right? Because we've had all these issues that have happened. Black Lives Matter is a conversation right now, but then yesterday was Juneteenth. I mean, that brings a whole nother dynamic and a whole nother conversation into play. So
yeah. Well, with me, I haven't been out protesting. I've been busy working because I'm essential personnel. But
I love it. We appreciate you, brother. We appreciate you.
But I've been discussing with the coworkers. Matter of fact, I had the first part one, watching it with my coworkers, and they brought up 20,000 questions and some of their opinions. I asked them to be on. They're like, no. I just got so I wrote down notes on what they were saying, but lost track. But yeah, it's going to hopefully build back up and be more serious again. Because right now, with the Juneteenth going on, people aren't really taking it serious. People just want to get out right now because of the corona.
True.
So they locked up, and this is an excuse for everybody to get out and get some sunshine. So.
Yeah.
Scott,
let's go to you, Scott.
I think the lockdown has screwed everybody up. I think we've all been played to an extent, but now forgive me. I want to pretext everything that I say. If I say anything, I'm not the most articulate person to have on a debate or anything like that. I don't debate people normally. I don't like confrontation. I don't like altercation. I'm a live and let live kind of guy. You live your life without violating my rights. I do the same to you. I give you the same respect. And that being said, I'm also a strong believer in our constitutional rights. Okay, I mean, I know this goes way back, but I think we've all been created equal in the vision of our Creator, and that we're all endowed with inalienable rights that can't be taken away from us, and we all have the right to liberty and the pursuit of happiness. And that's the pursuit of happiness. It doesn't have to be dropped in our lap, but we can pursue it without being, obstructed or violated or anything like that. Right. As far as what's been going on in the local area, quite frankly, for a long time now, I've been turning off the major news networks because I've actually caught them in some blatant lies, and it's become so political and so opinionated anymore that they don't deliver the facts. They don't give you honest to God journalism anymore. They give you opinion. They're the first to run a story without checking the facts or verifying anything, all for the sake of being the first out there to say it out. And anymore, if you hear something, you got to give it 24 to 72 hours before you can see if it really comes to light. I don't go out and protest. I have faith in our system that we will get through this and we'll get it right. Gee whiz. Brain fade.
It's all good. So let me ask you this, Scott. I mean, along those lines, because you're seeing a lot of what's happening and this isn't even one of the questions that I prefaced you guys with, right? But again, you're seeing a lot of this from a different perspective, right? And someone like me, Marvin, Tosh, I mean, right? We're seeing it from a different lens, but you're seeing it from a different lens.
I am.
I'm not even going to ask necessarily where you stand in terms of the whole movement, but just I think if you understand that the foundation and the premise of the movement really is equal rights, common decency, the fact that look, I can't have this man putting his knee on my friend's neck for. I mean, that's just not right. That's the dialogue that we're trying to have and make sure everyone understands that those types of things cannot happen from those that are designated to quote unquote protect and serve.
I'll tell you this. I'm sorry. I'll tell you this because of some of the media that I do get my information from, which is okay, granted, conservative media. All right, they are very much against what happened. The treatment that to me. First, I wasn't there. I didn't see what happened. I only know what's been shown to me, what I've heard, what I've read. So there's so much more that can go into this. On the professional standpoint, as far as law enforcement goes, I feel that there needs to be more training. Law enforcement doesn't get trained with this. Well, I don't know that either. I'm told that law enforcement doesn't necessarily get the best training. That there are things out there that can be used in an altercation. It'll be physical, but it'll be non-lethal. And there are things that can happen in a ground, what we call a ground fight, in which if you don't want to use lethal force, there are holds that can be made. There are ways to restrain people before you go to that final level of lethality. But these things aren't necessarily trained to all officers or all law departments. And it requires special training, jiu-jitsu work and things like that. And not just physical things, but also there has to be an understanding of social needs, mental illness to be addressed. All this stuff happens. And I think is that my hand doing that? Oh.
Yeah, that's probably Marvin over there eating chips while you trying to talk, right? So that's the problem right there. Marvin's over there eating potato chips while you're talking.
but I'm trying to get back to the protests that are happening here in town, and I applaud peaceful protest. I do. Okay, that's the way as citizens, we get our point across to the people that we voted in office to take care of things and get things done.
That's true. That's true.
But and I can understand why the youth would take action, although maybe they have a half part in this, because hey, I was young once too. I was of a different kind of mind at one time. I only knew so much. I knew what I thought was right. Maybe it was half right. Who knows? And I, did my thing. But I think what really needs is we as a community come together. We work this out because we should all be respectful of each other. We should all be courteous to each other. And one note, you're asking about what happens within the community. In my block here, there's several houses that have signs up, the Black Lives Matters signs up with names of people on it, things like that, and I can respect that. So I could say more. I don't want to get any deeper water.
Hey, we gonna get deep. We just started. No, don't worry, man. We just started.
I do not mean to offend anybody. I do not. No. I say something that's not my purpose.
I think something that you said that I think I feel a little bit differently is that I don't necessarily have faith in the system right now.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was saying.
Yeah. And I think, when you look at historically the years and years and years of brutality and oppression and discrimination, I don't think about it as a couple of individual cops who are bad. I think of it as a systematic issue. And so that's where I'm super disheartened right now because I don't have faith in that system. And so when we see all of these kids that have really great intentions that are out protesting, and, you know, people who are putting the signs in their front yard, and they're doing all of these, well, it's great for the movement, they're very superficial. And so it's like, what do we do to really make changes that will affect the system so that my kids and Tasha's kids and Callie's babies don't have the same experience 20 years from now? So that's just something that, you know, comes to my mind. One thing I was just going to add too about protests. Driving home last night, and we have this. We live in a pretty diverse neighborhood, which isn't necessarily representative of the rest of Placer County, and Callie can attest to that, I think. But there was a group of probably 6 families with like 4-year-olds and doing their own protest in our little teeny neighborhood. And that just really, it actually like choked me up a little bit. It brought it just that idea of, you know, starting your kids little and helping them understand what can they do to help change our system.
Makes sense. Appreciate that, Jen. Young Mr. Raymond, JJ, talk to us.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So for as far as what I see down the protest down here in Orange County, it's I would say it started off really encouraging, but it's also been breaking my heart at the same time. By encouraging, I mean that I see a lot of the generation of millennials and Gen Z actually use their voice and use their platform through social media to organize protests. Like down here, we have one Instagram account, and it has every protest time, organizer, purpose, what to wear for the pandemic, and what's our purpose, speakers. And that's been really encouraging to actually fight for oneness and really bring to attention that the system is broken. So that was really encouraging. I feel like I've seen every type of person, generation be out there, but unfortunately, I don't have the right words for it, but these peaceful protests have been hijacked. And I see a lot of people who unfortunately identifying with white supremacy hijacking a lot of these peaceful protests right now. Orange County, I mean, there's people walking around the peaceful protests with lynchings and saying white lives matter. There are people doing the George Floyd challenge, if you're not familiar with that, at these protests. And it's like, wow, like this is what's going on in the protests right now. Yeah. And we're not seeing that at all, but we're seeing what malls being looted or what Target's being burned down. And so it's very disheartening because these peaceful protests, from what they actually have the motives for, even just like people are hijacking it, and it's not showing the right image of what's going on here. And I think even just to go back just a little bit too, of like, yeah, these protests are trying to battle the system and bring light to man. Our nation has been founded on a lot of things that should not be founded on. And unfortunately, I think because of people hijacking these protests, it's turned into something else right now. So what I see right now is what's going to happen, especially after Juneteenth, like what you guys talked about too. Unfortunately, here in Orange County, we've seen a lot of Instagram influencers get dressed up, get their makeup on, pose for a picture of Black Lives Matter, hop in the car and leave. Or they'll hold up a power drill to try to fix something. And it's like, that's not reconciliation, and that's not oneness, and that's not advocacy. So unfortunately, I think people are just trying to take advantage of the situation right now. And we see a lot of that down here in Southern California.
Yeah, that's a problem in and of itself. And I think those folks will, I'm a believer in karma. Those folks will get weeded out, and that'll get addressed. Either they'll lose their influence, or they'll lose their positions. But again, I think being genuine, especially with something that matters to society and something that matters at this type of scale, is going to resonate moving forward. So, excellent. Thank you guys very much. Let me ask the next question here. Where should efforts be focused, right, to help drive change in policy, change in law, in perception, and in just perspective? You know, is it as easy as saying go out and vote? Is it organizing citizens patrols? What can everyday citizens, what can the folks that are listening in and chiming in right now, what can they do today to help drive change within their neighborhoods? Scott, let's go back to you first.
Oh, okay. You know,
that's right. I get you when you're not ready. That's all right.
No, that's okay. That's all right. No, I can grab something out of the deep crevices of my brain, what's left of it.
That's right.
Yeah, easy. And anyway, I feel it's the very basis. The very, very basis starts in the home. I think that communicating with your family. See, our nation's over 200 years old, right? Okay, and the nation's made tremendous mistakes in its time.
Yeah. Which is very young, right, compared to the rest of the world.
No,
Right? When you think about that.
Yeah, but then what's happened here is the fact that, how can I put it without being rude?
Be rude. It's okay, brother. It's okay. Like I say, I own the platform. You know what? I can put an E explicit on this if we need to. So
your ancestors were brought a lot of your ancestors, not everybody, but your ancestors were brought over here on Portuguese ships and sold. Okay, that the matter of slavery goes back to 1000 BC. Okay. And no, it's not right. Obviously, anybody with a moral compass, well, if you got a moral compass, you can figure that out for yourself. But it was, for lack of a better term, made right. I mean, it was a business. Is how you were treated back then, how they were treated back then, not you, how they were treated back then. I want to make sure you understand this. That this goes back thousands and thousands of years ago, and that they thought it was right. They thought it was okay. They put a value on a certain species and devalued another. And then as they conquered, when conquerors went through towns, they took the conquered, they took the ones that were worth working, and they made slaves out of them. The ones that weren't worth keeping as slaves were killed. And just keeps on going and on and on and on and on. Finally, you come over here to our country, and this kind of continues on. And we have a civil war. It wasn't necessarily about slavery, but it had a major component. Now you get the slaves supposedly released to freedom back in 1870. I forgive my history. Forgive my history, okay? But and again, disrespect anybody. So now you've got all these, hardworking, majority of them un or partially educated people. Here's your freedom. Well, great. What do I do with it? I don't know. It's up to you now. And so you have these people who were kept for so long that they don't know how to accept that responsibility or that ability to flourish. Some did. And we just keep on going on and on. I want to make you understand that how I feel was that if you think something's okay to do today, if it's legal, if it's lawful, chances are you're probably going to do it. Okay? Whether it's moral or not, that depends on your moral compass. Back then, I don't think they understood moral compass so much. Now we have, we've seen the improvements. I can't express enough. I know things aren't perfect in this country. Things probably never will be perfect in this country, but things have improved. They have improved. I've seen it.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, James. I'm sorry.
No. Go ahead. I don't want to cut you off, but I do have something to say.
Sometimes I go on tangents. I'm trying to get to a point. Sometimes I just can't quite make it.
No worries, brother. And I can tell that you're struggling to find the right words to say, or you're trying to make amends for 200 plus years of what has happened. And
not amends, but just an understanding the way I see it. I'm saying that it's it's just for instance, let's say, hey, Marvin and I like to go out and have a hamburger. Well, what happens? They say 200 years from now, animals have voting rights, and please don't take it wrong. It's just a strange way out analogy. But all of a sudden now people 200 years from now are going to look at me and Marvin as being vicious animals.
Yeah.
You know, not giving the creatures their rights and eating their flesh and so on like that. I know it's a far out analogy, but believe me, it's the way I see it is if something was lawful 500, 200 years ago, and now we see it as being wrong, we learned. We developed the moral compass. We developed the appreciation of life. And the one thing I can really say here is that I don't like, as soon as we start dividing people up in races, we've already created a division. The one thing that we can really say we have in common here is that we're all part of the human race. We're part of the human race. How we treat each other is going to determine how this planet's going to turn out. And we got to treat each other with respect and consideration.
Understood. But again, so let me pause real quick and just what I'm seeing coming from the chats and what I'm thinking as well. I want you again to, and I think Marvin prefaced you. This is a safe zone, man. I mean, we are here just to have this dialogue, and there's not necessarily a right or a wrong thing to say, but just the fact that we're having this conversation amongst ourselves, I think, is education and is positive moving forward in and of itself. So, I mean, you stated a couple of things that, all right, this is me being frank and me being candid, that you're trying to make amends for the entire white race, right, for doing what they've done. I just want to hear from Scott how he sees today what you're doing within your sphere of influence, that 5-mile radius from your house to the local grocery store. How are you touching your area and your neighborhood to say this is wrong, this is right, and let's try to make some changes? Now, so that being said, Callie and Callie and then Tosh, I want to get your guys' perspective in terms of what Scott has been saying. We'll start with you, Callie. Don't let me make fun of your phone now. Just because I can break some of the some of the drama here and talk bad about your phone. Shouts out to Boost Mobile or T-Mobile, whoever you on there. You okay, Callie? Tosh, I'll send it over to you. Let's go to you before.
Scott. Oh,
So sorry, but
we got Callie. Go, Callie. Or maybe not.
Go.
That's,
This was not supposed to be a comedic show, but go ahead, girl. Go ahead, girl. It's probably she's got 4 kids, right? I think so. I mean, that could be the thing too. They could be back there streaming or something.
I'd be on medication right now, but that's
Mommy
Tosh,
medication.
Tosh, let me finish it over you.
Yeah, I'll jump in. So Scott, I heard a lot of what you said. Here's the thing, though, is that we've got to. It's more than just saying what happened in the past and that we've made progress. The fact that Isaiah's about to start driving. I have a 16-year-old that's out driving right now. I get scared every time he gets in a car because I don't know that he's going to come home. And that's because the system hasn't fixed itself.
right.
And I think that the only way that we can fix it is not just voting, so I live in Georgia. I told you that. And by the time we had our primary 2 weeks ago, and we all know what a cluster that was. We had a lot of people that, thank God, stood in line to vote for hours, but there were a lot of people that didn't go because the big elections were already decided, right? Whether you're Republican or Democratic, each of them has enough delegates. And so stressing the importance of voting for your local government, right? The school board, the local sheriff. I did more research on who my school board post representative is this election than I've ever thought about doing because I care about what they're going to put in the curriculum in my schools. A couple of years, 2 years ago, one of my younger sons, his football teammate was in his elementary school where it was okay to have the kids during Black History Month take roles of the Black kids being the slaves and the white kids being the owners. And oh, by the way, dress up like a slave for this event. Really? It was 2018. Why is that a part of curriculum?
Yeah.
So starting to change the dialogue at the very local level is where I'm choosing to make efforts. Also, how I engage with my kids, right? I have a 16-year-old, as I mentioned, and then I have a 13-year-old, and my 13-year-old is super duper social. He plays with everybody. He plays on multiple sports teams. We probably play on one of the most diverse baseball teams in West Cobb, and Cobb County is where we live. And we do that on purpose because we want his friends and our white neighbors to look at him and realize he's not a threat. Because the more exposure they have to him and our lifestyle, that, by the way, is just like yours, the less that they are seeing, when they're going out, they're less afraid. And let's be real, there are moms all over my neighborhood that when they see us in Kroger or when they see other Black people in different areas, they do that, hold on to their purse a little bit tighter. And until you get to the point where they get used to seeing kids like that and adults like that, it's still going to be an issue. So I appreciate your stance, Scott, but the system isn't better.
Okay.
Yeah. Can I share real quick, James? Is that cool too, man?
Definitely.
Yeah. So, yeah, like I appreciate, like I sense the heart of just like, hey, I want to make sure that there's equality, there's equity, and there's oneness. But I feel like just in this time of like the posture of empathy and believing what our Black brothers and sisters are sharing right now is true, and actually listening and saying, hey, I feel you and I hear you. And I think right now, I agree with Tosh that when I actually look through the lens of 400 years of what the Black community has experienced, I think that's trauma. And I don't think trauma disappears in 100 years, 200 years, 300 years, 400 years. It's inherited. And so even though, say, in the laws that there's no more Jim Crow, but there's modern Jim Crow like laws right now, it's like that trauma gets passed down generationally as well, too. And I feel like if we don't process that trauma with the younger generation and say, no, the racism that you experience to this day is valid, it's like, then we're just going to share a complete narrative of like, hey, we just made progression and things are getting better right now. And your feelings and your experiences aren't valid. And I think that goes into like what Tasha's saying, like with like what we've been doing as a family is just like, have we been calling our representatives, even if we're not in California, have we been calling people in Louisville and actually asking, hey, what's going on with Breonna Taylor's case right now, And are we actually making right decisions for our kids? For our kids being biracial, they're the only Asian Americans that live on the block of our neighborhood. And so it's like, man, how do we make sure our kids are known and seen and just don't fit into the model minority? I'm throwing a lot of words like here, I can explain later. But I just encourage you to even think like, man, where is the history coming from? Is it multiple different lenses? Is it just one history? And have we been looking through the past 400 years and realizing that even though the laws are different, the experiences and the trauma is still there? So I think if we don't do that, we're going to be still in the same cycle. And unfortunately, at the rate it's going, it's still going to continue this way too. So that's just my perspective on that.
That's a good point. And hold on to that thought, Jay, because I'm actually going to have you talk a little bit more about how you and the young ones are addressing what's going on in today's world. So, Callie, I want to throw it over to you, but you've got to unmute yourself.
Dead silence.
Oh my goodness. She knows her way around a camera, right? She can take some pictures if you need some photographs taken from graduation. But man, when it comes to clicking on the live stream, Miss Tisdale, I'm talking bad about you because I know your mama. Okay, I'm talking bad about you because I know your mama. That's all good. Jen, let me let you chime in then while Callie is still having some issues.
Sure, thanks. So I think I'm with Tosh in that I think my focus has really been on our local level. And I think that, when I look at our little community, our very suburban, very white-centric community, I think my focus over the last couple of weeks has really been on how do I educate the people that are in our circles about what I experience as a mom of 2 Black kids, as a wife of a Black husband. I think there's this sense in our community that these things don't happen, these worries aren't mine. So I've just been very vocal about, helping people understand, like as Tosh was saying, Isaiah is going to be driving in a couple of months. Like, these are the things that I worry about, and helping people understand that, socioeconomic status isn't necessarily something that makes all of those other racial issues go away. We're in a middle upper class neighborhood. And so I think there's an assumption that this is something that happens in poor Black neighborhoods. This isn't something that happens in our little suburbia that, I call the Roseville bubble. So I think that's been one thing, just little things like, our police department had posted a thing saying, every night at 8:46, go outside to just show your support of anti-racism and your support for justice. And, the first night I went out there, I was the only person out there, and I was pissed. And James is calming me down saying, well, maybe they don't know about it yet. And then the second night I went out there, I'm the only one out there. And the third night, I'm the only one out there. And then I put my little signs on the mailbox saying, come join our family, we're out here. And then my signs get taken down the very first night. So then I made a bigger sign and I planted in the lawn, and still I'm out there. But it's that sense of I'm not giving up. Like, I'm not giving up on helping my little community see things differently. And that's something that I feel like I can impact. Facebook battles, I think everyone's been in those lately. I know I see Callie in her Facebook battles all the time. I know Callie's lost clients and customers because of the Facebook battles. But I've really, been more prone to take those battles on in a very authentic way and with respect. But I'm itching to do more. So I'm itching to figure out, what does this look at like beyond my community? What impact can I have beyond my community? And I don't know what that looks like yet.
Toby wants to say something, but before he chimes in, can I just say one other thing that Jen reminded me, which was one of the things that I've taken on personally is being okay making other people uncomfortable.
Yes.
It's always been okay to like, oh, don't worry about it. Or, I know what you meant. And now I feel much more emboldened, and, it makes more sense to literally say, no, that's not okay. Or to call people out on stuff that you would have been like, oh, but I know their heart. No, it's bull. I may know your heart, but you still said something that you shouldn't have said, or done something that you shouldn't have done. And yeah, I'm right there with you, Callie, on those Facebook. There are people that, that before I'd be like, no big deal. Like, they post something, I mind my business, right? I'll post my thing. Now I'm challenging and making, what makes you think that? Why do you believe that? So that's a bit different on the local. Toby.
If y'all don't mind me adding, I feel like
step in there, brother. Go get close to the microphone. Go. I've heard you talk before. Yeah, I've heard you talk.
Different points though, but as far as the everything that's been repeated, it's a lot of because a lot of the younger generation and older generation they've never been taught a lot of stuff that's in school about racism, about slavery, about all this other stuff. So when a lot of them say, "Well, I never knew that," and they didn't understand why black people in general are treated certain ways, is because nobody really understands a lot of what went on in the past. It's always brushed over, maybe studied in February for like a couple of weeks, and then everything else goes on.
Yeah.
So it's a case where they did not know. And the thing is, you can keep saying I didn't know, but at some point in time, you have to take the time to go study and see what's going on, because there's plenty of information out there to help you understand what's been going on generationally.
Right.
And the other point I'm gonna say about police training, I think they're trained differently at the academy. You train one way at the academy, where a lot of this other stuff that transpires and what goes on in the street is they're training officers. So if there's no checks and balances with your training officer and what they do normally, they're gonna think it's the same thing that we're supposed to do all the time. And some of them are scared to either go against it and not understand that I know it's wrong, but it's the one that's training me. So he has my career and my life in his hands at this point. So I don't know how to combat that and say, what do I need to do? Because there's plenty of times where somebody might have said something about training officers doing this, but because this person's been in the force for a while, it gets brushed under the rug.
Mm-hmm. Toby, don't go too far, bro. Don't go too far because and the reason being there's a comment that's in the stream that I want you to interact with and answer as well. But now that we do have Callie back, I want to make sure that she gets a chance to chime in on this second question. And if you can unmute yourself, that'd be great.
You might have to type it in the comments to tell it on you.
There you go.
Sorry, I think she's good now.
Everybody talking bad about you, Callie. You gotta redeem yourself, partner.
I cannot hear.
The question is, what do you think everyday citizens, the folks in your neck of the woods, in your neighborhood, what can they do today to help drive some positive change from your perspective?
I think some of the things is just racial comments that honestly have been made to me my whole life that I really didn't realize were racist until getting older. Like, you're the whitest black girl I've ever met. Like, people shouldn't say those kind of things. Like, black people aren't like a wild species or something. Like, we're the human race just like you. There's no such thing as the whitest black person I've ever met. Like, I just don't get you're I always was told you're an Oreo, you're white on the inside, black on the outside, you're pretty for a black girl. Teaching your kids to not say those kind of comments, they're just not okay. I don't know where or this it even started to just that was okay. I just feel growing up those were just comments that were that's funny, that's nice, and I feel people just breed that into their kids. Saying those kind of things is totally fine. I think things like that need to be more awareness that it's not okay to say those kind of comments to people, that they can be hurtful. But it's always just, you always would take it and be oh, well, they don't mean it like that, we're friends, they're just trying to be funny, they're trying to be nice. But as I got older, I realized those really aren't okay, and then also people just taking everything as a joke. I've seen so many memes and everything, Black Lives Matter, that I don't know, it's just people have made all of this into such it's just kind of a hysterical for some people.
Yeah, and that's completely that's
So
unfortunate.
I think taking it a little bit more seriously would help out a little.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that. I'll chime in with my perspective as we get a little closer to the end. But thank you for that. I want to go back to some things that are passing through the comments because again, we want to make this interactive, and I'm flexible and I like to move on the fly here. So let me start with Marvin, you and Scott, and then Toby. This is the question that I wanted you to engage with. Dave Natividad. I've known this guy for a long time. Good man right here. American Independent, neutral, red or blue. Explain the system, right? We all know what the system is. Explain from your perspective what you feel is broken. And Marvin, let me start with you and then throw it over to Scott, and then we'll go over to Tobe.
Well, it was built broke. How when you build a computer, you put in junk, you get out junk. So it was trash when it was put together, and that's the trash that's coming out now. It needs to be revamped, reformed, like the police department is being reformed. And also our community has to be reformed, because you got the young kid on the corner making in a day what I make in a month. How are you going to convince him to come off the street corner to knuckle down and put in the hard work like you and I have been doing, or everybody here has been doing? They don't think they're going to live that long, so they don't care.
So wait a minute. So let me stop on that. So who doesn't think they're going to live that long? That's I don't want to gloss over that. Who are you referring to in that?
I'm talking, the little street kid corner dealing drugs, trying to make his hustle. They're making buku money on the street at night. They don't have to hustle. They don't have to go to school, do the job, because they got that instant fast money. There's no reason for them to go to school, to put in the hard work, to go to some technical training school to raise a family. They don't have that support system, and it started with the family. They don't have that support system at home. mom and dad putting their foot up their ass, telling them, yo, don't bring that garbage here. You got to do what you need to do, go to school, learn.
Because that's when the system originally got broken, right? When we have laws that don't support, that penalize without equity, when Black men are getting, sentences that are 2 and 3 times what white counterparts are for the exact same or lesser crimes, the system starts out broken, and you don't have 2 family homes, and you don't have that income, and you don't have that generational wealth that can be built, because the system is broken starting at the very, very beginning.
Yeah. Now we're still with the drug dealer on the corner. Now you got the marijuana shops going up, but they're still going to arrest the Black kid on the corner for selling marijuana to the white guy in suburbia that comes to the hood to buy their marijuana. But
why is it going to be a white guy?
But the dispensary,
it's like
they get money.
It's a reality. It's a reality.
Yeah, and the guys that have been incarcerated for selling drugs, are they going to let them go because marijuana is now illegal? It's now legal in some states.
Because prisons are set up to be the modern day slave camps.
Yes.
That's all it is. It's a business where large corporations are making money off of Black men that are incarcerated.
Yeah. So I think. So Scott, before you go on, and I think just and I'll let you chime in as well. So Dave, brother Natividad, I think what we're saying is, the system in and of itself was never geared towards everybody, right? All lives, all people weren't created equal when the papers were drawn on this in this country. So that's where our perspective is coming at when we say that the system is broken. So all of these people that are going around now, let's tear down these Confederate statues, let's rename bases, let's make Juneteenth a federal holiday. This is the right conversation to have, right? I mean, we need to start we should have been having these types of conversations before. This is what's slowly going to help fix the system and make it right for everyone. So the system was broken when it was made, and it's unfortunate, and I swear I take this to heart. That's why I get a little emotional here. Why does it have to take so many folks to go through hell and trauma and death before you wake up? Right, before we start making these changes, why do I have to? I'd rather have a conversation with you guys about much more lighter topics. But this is our duty to have these types of conversation. This is why, Scott, you're here. This is why, JJ, you're here. Right? I mean, again, different types of conversations. Part 1 was just a room full of Black dads who have been pulled over by the police, who have gone through the search and been assumed guilty before. And so we've gone through that. We've lived that every single day of the year. I've told my kids how to engage with law enforcement should they ever get pulled over, right? So I mean, that's a real conversation that I have to have with my kids, as opposed to my neighbor maybe having to have with someone when they get pulled over. So backing up to Dave Natividad, that's why we're having this conversation, and that's why we really feel that the system in and of itself is inherently broken. It can be fixed, and again, it's unfortunate that it takes these types of situations to happen, but we think that these types of conversations, these types of dialogue, these hard conversations, going back and forth, the voices getting a little loud whenever they need to be. I'm sweating. I got to go off camera every now and then because I start sweating here. But this is what drives progress. So I don't want to take. Go ahead.
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
I'm used to Zoom where I can raise my hand. So I'm just gonna jump in. I think the other thing, David, that if you just everything that James said, yes, absolutely. Everything Tosh and Toby said, absolutely. But if you even just look at what's happened in the last 2 months and look at things like Ahmaud Arbery, where it wasn't just a couple of crazy white supremacist dudes that shot him. It was a whole justice and criminal justice system behind that that allowed nobody to be held accountable, allowed that to be swept under the rug. You look at Breonna Taylor, same thing. It's like it wasn't just, a bad cop that made a bad decision or a bad choice in barging in and starting to shoot. It was a criminal justice system that arrested her boyfriend for protecting his family. So that's where, when I think about it's a whole system, it's not just the single act, it's what happens after the act. And just in these last few instances that have really brought a lot of this to the surface in people's eyes, there are very concrete examples of how it's more than an individual. It's about the whole system that's supporting that individual.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, none of this is on video.
This is the thing that I want to add, though, and I'm going to say this because when I said and made the statement about training officers, my father was the Atlanta Police Department. Mm-hmm. He was in the Atlanta Police Department for 27 years. You know what I'm saying? So he was on the street. He trained at the academy, and I know the guys who he's trained, and I know what they were about. So that's the thing is like you take, and I'm not saying at this point it's not just a few bad apples. It's a whole barrel. But like I say, that's where it comes in, where you have to have those checks and balances with your training officer. You have to have those where if this one particular officer who's been training a number of guys, if there's been multiple complaints about him, that's where the investigations need to start. And nobody does that because a lot of that stuff is swept under the rug. He's been here for a while, or we don't want him to lose his pension. And I'm like, dude, he's been doing the same thing over and over again. The same police officer that killed George Floyd had a number of complaints about him over the years. It wasn't just one incident. He had a number of complaints about him and nothing was ever done. So when I see that, and I know now, my father be turning over the grave to see a lot of this stuff, and he's seen it before. But it's like I say, it's about those guys who are being trained by people that's already in the street. They have a certain idea how they think things should be, and it's about time to just wash all those guys out and figure out a new way of doing things and training and have a better checks and balances. Because there are some good cops out there. I'm not going to lump all those guys in lunch.
I mean, that's easier said than done, and I think that but I think that's the right thing to do. But again, I think that's easier said than done, and I don't even want to use this phrase because I'm not a fan of 45. But I would say it's time to clean up a little bit. Let me say, right? It is time to. I don't want to quote 45 because I just don't.
Yeah, but I mean, my thing is to really clean it up, and we talked about voting at the local level. But the thing is, when you got a lot of these guys that's been in the system for a while, a lot of the politicians that's already there, there's nobody running against them. So they don't feel threatened. They don't feel like they need to change anything because it's been working or it's been working for us. So why should I change anything? There's nobody running against me. So why would I have to change anything until it affects me directly?
So part of the question was, and then I'll go into our third one, but is it just getting people to vote? But if they're not going out there and vote, what else can we do? I'm really asking the question to the five other folks, to the smart people on the call here.
Well, education, because Black history is not in the schools except for Black History Month. So
it is in February.
Even then, it's the same five people.
Right.
You learn about the same five people every February.
I saw a political cartoon where a white kid and black kid walking down the street, and the black kid has a bunch of books, and he's like something to effect like, "Why are you still studying Black history? Why is there a Black History Month?" He's like, "Well, Black History Month's for you, not me. Black history is year round."
Right.
Even though the younger kids now still don't know the Black history of what went on, what's the different things that have happened during the history. Education, more education with the police, some sensitivity training, telling the new recruits to stand up when they see something wrong. Like I said, I'm an aircraft mechanic. I'm an instructor now. And I tell the young guys, I say, hey, if you see something wrong, say something. Don't let the senior guy that intimidate you and saying, oh no, this is right, this is how we do it, this is how we do things. No, you have a manual of how things are supposed to go. And I tell the new students when I get them, sometimes depending on how they're going, I said, basically, I don't give a fuck about your feelings. I care about 120 plus people on the aircraft. So if you do something wrong, I'm gonna say something. If you do keep making that same mistake, I'm gonna keep saying it over and over again until, okay, now there's a problem. We need to address this problem. Same with the cops making
Incidences.
all the incidences that's going on with the abuse. Something happened. Okay, tell them this is not right. You can't be doing this. He does it again. Hey, we told you, stop doing this. And it keeps continuing with no punishment. It's like, okay, we need to get you out of here because you're not doing what you need to be doing.
Yeah.
Those young rookie cops need to stand up and be like, yo, cross that blue line that you have and say, hey, this ain't right. I'm speaking up. We need to stop this. So until they get excuse me, ladies, but the balls to stand up and say it,
Watch out now. Watch out now.
It's not gonna happen.
It's all good, brother. It's all
They
good.
need to have that support when they do stand up and say it, though.
Yeah, they get
like
black
that.
people.
Well, yeah, that's what's got to change as far as the law enforcement side of it goes. You know, the as I understand it, you know, your law enforcement unions come to the aid of a lot of people. Many times rightfully so, sometimes wrongfully so. The unions are there also to protect us. I can get into it. My take on it and other people's take on it is that the unions could actually be used as a liaison. Well, we're getting away from this anyway. I think that the unions need to be reworked. I think there needs to be laws put in place that where there are the bad players that come out to mind, that this should be taken care of and nipped in the bud right away. I'm along with Marvin. Education, honest, truthful education. Not
whether it hurts or not. The truth.
Well, it's going to hurt. I mean, truth hurts. You know.
Yeah.
By the way, no.
I mean, the hard conversations need to happen, and again,
right, and so it needs to be, but not just to schools. Again, in the homes.
Yeah.
If you don't teach your children to respect other people, respect your neighbor, respect, and if you're not being treated right, then you go get help.
Yeah.
But respect goes on both sides of the fence, and it's not just respect for people; it's respect for rules and laws of order.
Yeah.
Let's face it: if unlawful society is nothing but chaos.
Mm-hmm.
One word about the law. The law is about desertion and not so much about law enforcement. And you got to have that play in there. You got to be able to communicate with people both ways. So, but and getting out there, being as adults. I know I have a habit of carrying on a conversation with people I don't know. And I don't care if you're.
There's nothing wrong with that, man.
No, man. My kids get all stiff and nervous because, what's
Dad going to say now? Yeah, what's Dad going to say now?
Dad's going to say now is exactly right. God, Dad, if my kids don't even know I'm on the thing right now, if my kids are watching it, they're probably freaking out. But gosh darn it, I was going to go with a really good point here, and that's rare in my case. Gee whiz.
Well, I saw the little comment that Sarah put up about it being ingrained. It is ingrained in both cultures, with the police and in the African American community. That's the one right there. It needs to be whatever uningrained. We need to slowly teach them how to stop it.
I was talking to my wife this morning. It says, gee whiz, when I was a kid, okay, a few days ago, you and I was just a child, but you heard the term Negro all the time, and then you hear the term the other N word, the other way they say it. well, that's okay. That's something else to talk about, which is kind of like a double mixture. I worked in a location where I had a blended work group that I was working with, and everybody's having a good time, getting along, and being free and talking and joking around. And next thing you know, one black guy's calling the black guy the N-word. And I'm going, what? To me, I thought that was kind of like, come on, why? What do you? I guess they're joking, but I mean, gee whiz. I mean, if you're gonna, it's a double standard thing. If I didn't know any better, and if I had just a few neurons short of a synapse, I would have thought that, well, gee whiz, I guess it's okay for me to call that person that too. That's not the way it is.
I tell you what, I tell you what, brother, I'm gonna deviate. Don't mess around and slip. Yeah, don't mess. Don't mess around and slip up and take this conversation to a whole nother level. So I'm gonna just throw that right. I'm moving my microphone. Ooh, yes, don't. But I hear you. No, it makes sense, man. And that's a double standard. I think that we in our society and in our entertainment and right and just that needs to be addressed and that needs to be dealt with as well. But that's not. So
what he was saying about the N-word, I just learned some new history on that. The hip hop culture is trying to make it a good thing. A brotherly, yo, what's up, brother type thing. When it came from the negative with the white man calling them the N-word and this and that, breaking them down. But then there's more history to that, to where I was talking to some African friends who born and raised in Africa from the homeland. They said it's actually a name of royalty. So when they came here, I still don't use it. I can't use that word.
Yeah, it's so tough.
I'm still, hey, I'm a Negro, this and that, blah, blah, blah. And so, oh, you a nigger. So boom, 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 they beat them down. But that word with the translation, they couldn't pronounce the word. So it's actually came from royalty. So like kings, queens type thing. So the white man made it a negative. Now the hip hop culture is making it positive again. You're not going to call me that word till still today, but that's more history, more education that needs to be brought out.
I hear you, brother. I hear you. But I'm starting to get the okay. I'm trying to relax right now because we about to set it off up in here, and okay, I'm gonna stay focused because again I'm here to moderate. But so let me pause, Scott. Thank you for bringing that up, right, and for being comfortable in at least addressing that and hearing and seeing the reaction. I don't know. So if you play this video back, you probably gonna see me twitching. You probably gonna see Toby. You probably gonna see Toby and Tosh over there. Right? Yeah, so, but again, because there's still that incredibly negative connotation about that, and that has to adjust and that has to change. But just the fact that you were able to bring that up, I swear there were 485 people that are listening and watching right now on the backside at watch parties who had the same question or wanted to say the exact same thing, but they're not typing it in. So we thank you for that. Callie Tisdale is having a hard time with her internet.
She's a rough day.
She's probably on that dial up, the HughesNet. I'm not sure what she's using. I'm just gonna leave that alone. Callie, you good? Can you talk now? Can you talk, Callie? Oh, she on mute. Oh my God. There you go. Callie, it's all you. I'm gonna start this last question with you because I think it's, and then I'm gonna go over to JJ. What messages, and we've already talked a little bit about this. What messages are you sharing with your children? If you've got them, and what yeah, she's got 4 of them. What messages are you sharing with your children in terms of what's happening today and what's happening now, in terms of how to see some positives, see the reality, move forward, whatever the case may be? What are you talking to your kids about when you're around the dinner table? It's all you, Callie.
So the twins, they're 2, so I haven't really spoken anything to them. But Dachshund is almost 5. we took him to a protest. He was able to like see it. We've been talking about how people during this time we're teaching people to like love people no matter the color of their skin and accept them, but also to take in like what all we've been through. We have books that talk about different things like tons of like slavery and everything. We've talked with him about it. We told him, there's some cops that don't like you because of the color of your skin, but they're not all bad. And just kind of like getting into little different things that we'll have to talk about with him when he's older. But as far as the other ones, we haven't really said anything to because they're so young still.
Mr. Raymond, what about you? You've got a impressionable young daughter who sees everything and soaks it up like a sponge, right? I know you've got another young one who is just now seeing the world. But talk to us about your oldest and what you and your wife are talking about today's situations around the dinner table.
Yeah, no, and I think for us, it's more than a dinner table conversation. It's probably every day and almost every moment, it seems like right now, because Carly and I are talking about it constantly. And we feel like if we aren't, then we're going to be doing a huge disservice at the same time. But for us, our daughter already sees ethnicity, already sees different cultures. And she's unfortunately already experienced racism at the age of 3 years old, too. And we had college students make fun of her eyes and all that stuff. And it just breaks my heart that for being half Asian American, half Korean American, for her to experience at age 3. It's like, if we don't have these conversations with her, the topic of ethnicity and culture, it's like, are we actually setting her up well for the future? And so there's kind of two things we're focusing on, particularly with this time, but everything's going on with the Black community. And that right now is, hey, you need to see, we're trying to encourage Naomi, like, you need to see ethnicity and not say, I see one ethnicity. Like, I see that you're Black. I see that there are Latino brothers and sisters. I see that they're Asian American brothers and sisters. Like, you need to recognize and bring dignity to who they are and what their ethnicity is. And so with that, we have been talking about differences and about like, yes, your friend at church is Black and he is going to experience something very different than you are when you are a young adult. And so we're actually having these conversations now. We had this conversation when we bring them to a peaceful protest, and we're just trying to expose her as much as possible and realize, yeah, like as an Asian American woman, you will have some privilege compared to Latino women and Black women, and trying to encourage already, like, how do you steward that privilege and the resources that are given to you? So something that we're really trusting and trying to talk with Naomi right now is this 3-step process of how do you reconciliation, how do you relocate so your circles aren't mono and that there's so many different cultures and that there's these ethnicities around you? Then how do you redistribute the resources that you've been given as well? Is it your finances? Is it your time? Is it an advocacy, a voice? How to be an ally? And then kind of this other part that we're starting to venture into here is just recognizing and telling her that, hey, like, you are Asian and it's not by fault. You are half white and that's not by fault. And you are going to have a very unique story, and you just need to remember that there are people out there that will use that against you, but you should be proud to be multi-ethnic. And so we're just trying to speak belief into our 2 girls right now and realize that, one, because we're Asian American, we are going to have privilege, but we need to be an advocate and an accomplice for the Black community. So particularly we're doing that with our family right now. So
Awesome. I appreciate that. And I was going to dive into some extra things with you, but you kind of touched on them. So let me still ask you this: in your 9 to 5, right? I mean, so you're out there talking to students, impressionable, 18 to 20 some years old, from a spiritual perspective, right? Working with Crew. What are the conversations that you're having right now at Crew and at your virtual Sunday services about what's going on right outside the door of your home, right? How is that dialogue going with folks that are reading the book, but after service, after 11 o'clock, putting the book down and going out there and saying whatever they're saying? I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I feel it. Yeah. And I think that's something that, unfortunately, being like in full-time ministry has been very disheartening, of that the Bible and the church has been very complicit with racism. It's actually been some of the founders of the Chateau principle, when slavery first started. And it's just like, as Christians, as a church, we failed tremendously, man, And even though the Bible is saying, like, the image of God, that all people are made equally and they deserve equity and they deserve to be seen for who they are made to be, like, the church is not doing that right now. So we're having those beginning conversations with our college students. And there's a word that's been going on right now. You guys might be familiar with it, but it's like decolonization, you know, or just like realizing and deconstructing everything that we've been learned, and because it's been taught through a certain lens. So with our students, we just started recently, like, let's start back with like the story of creation. Okay. Like, there's a reason that God made Adam and Eve and gave them ethnic identity and cultural identity, and that's not by fault. And we talk a lot about the nations, the cultures, because a lot of these students have never heard that before. Unfortunately, like, our students have never, they think that social justice, a human rights issue right now going on, is not a gospel issue. So we're trying to bridge those together and say, no, like, if you're following Jesus, man, like, this is something that you're called to do, is to fight for oneness. And so there's been a lot of hard conversations. We are a nonprofit. We've seen financial support fall off because people disagree that this is not true and this is not a biblical thing. We've seen students leave the ministry as well because this is like, yeah, this is not a Jesus, but no, it is. So right now we're just trying to encourage students to realize that, man, Jesus is not white. He does not bleed America. He does not bleed all this. And we're trying to say that the Bible, yes, has been used for horrible behavior and horrible actions, but that was through a lens that is definitely not of Jesus. So right now we're using the words deconstruction and trying to really point our students to, like, man, what does the Bible actually have to say about ethnicity and culture? So that was a lot, but yeah.
No, I mean, and that's a good point, and I think it resonated, as you see with the comment that we get on the screen right now, right? The Bible does not promote hate and horrible behavior, but you know, society, people have manipulated the word. So I think that's a key point that Michelle brings up. So I appreciate you for that. Jen, where are you, right? In terms of, I know, but you know, for all the folks watching, right? I mean, because again, I mean, you brought it up, right? You're the only one in the neighborhood out here, right, for the amount of time to show solidarity, but tell everyone else again, you know, the conversation that you have with an impressionable 18-year-old, and how old is Isaiah?
Almost 16.
Oh,
16 and on.
I can't hear this.
I wish this was more than coffee, but it's only coffee, you guys. But so
yeah. So I mean, I think we've had all of the typical conversations with our kids about, you know, if you get pulled over, where your hands on the wheel, all of those things. I think that, you know, a lot of our conversations have been directed at Isaiah because he's a Black male, and something that really resonated with me recently is, you know, and James, you know this, Jordan is forever leaving her wallet in the side pocket of her car, and it's parked out front. And we're like always yelling at her, like, you're going to get robbed. People are going to break into your car. And she told me the other day she does that so she can get it easily if she gets pulled over. And like, we didn't have that conversation with her explicitly. We've had it with Isaiah. We've had it in general, but that just like opened my eyes a little bit more into what she's thinking. I think, you know, one of the things as she was choosing a college, I know James was as well, but I was really pushing her to get out of our community, to get into an urban, whatever, too far from her mama. But you know, I want both of them to get out of this Roseville suburbia bubble and experience the world in a way that that we haven't exposed them. I mean, obviously, I think we've given them a great life, and I wouldn't trade anything for the world. But I also am recognizing as they get older that they need to see more than what's in our little world. In terms of conversations, you know, I think, I don't know if it's more conversation or more, I mean, Tosh knows, James, you all know, I'm, you know, pretty vocal, and I'm, you know, very much an advocate, and I don't see that as much as in my kids. And I wish they were more, they spoke more than they do. You know, I can give you a very specific example. Jordan, I think it was her freshman year, she had a kid in her math class that was wearing a Confederate flag sweatshirt to school a couple days a week. And I didn't hear about it from Jordan. I heard about it from another mom who had a kid that was in the class. And it was like, why didn't that bother her? So I think that's what I worry about is have we raised them to, or are they in this world where they think that, that's just the way it is, just ignore it. Like I want them to have more fire in their belly. I want them to stand up more. So I don't know how better to model that for them. I don't know if that was even the question. That's what's on my mind.
It's all good. That was from the heart. And before I flip it over to you, Scott and Marvin, and I'll just answer and say that I've been pleasantly surprised and impressed with our kids responding on their own social media feeds to what's going on, right? So they, again, I'm not going to use the Urban Dictionary statements. I'm not going to use their woke. I'm not going to use those statements, but I'm going to say they are aware of what's going on, and they know the difference between what is right and what is wrong, and they are voicing. Again, I always talk about your sphere of influence, the folks that you have direct contact with and that you can help guide and converse with. So they are aware of what's going on. They are talking amongst their peers, and they are helping driving change amongst their peers. So we did our thing, right? They're gonna be all right. They're gonna be all right. And again,
high five against the screen.
but again, she's going off to UCLA, right? She's leaving the Northern California area, and she's going to be thrown into
the heart of it.
She's just going to be thrown into the firestorm, which is good. Right. I think she's definitely strong enough, and she is aware enough to go the right path. She may veer off a little bit. She may fall down. I want her to fall down. Then I want her to get back up, and I want her to learn from it. And I think she will be, at the end of the day, she will be a better person for all of her experiences. So Mama, you did a good job. Congratulations. You got a kid going to college. I can't retire yet. Scott and Marvin, let me let you talk right now before I start thinking about how much tuition is going to cost me.
What was the question?
The question was, what messages are you sharing with your children in terms of what's happening now?
Yeah, right.
That's all good, man.
Well, first of all, I've got 3 adult children, so and I feel with a terrific mother that they have.
I know. Watch out! I saw her walking in the background. Don't know me had.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
I used to be careful. Every time I went out on mission, when I came home, Marvin's car was parked out front. I don't know what that was all about, but I just thought he was mowing my lawn, but I don't know.
Guess who's coming to dinner?
Yeah.
Oh.
No, I think we did. I think we did a good job on raising 3 good citizens. Trying to instill upon them that there should be respect. Again, like back to what I said before, for all involved here, that we all have a contribution that we can make. I encourage them to speak with people, and they I don't know, they don't get involved in activism. They're busy trying to make their own lives happen. I'm not of the financial means to send my kids off to school and stuff like that. That was a tough thing. 2 of them were able to, well, actually, they all went to college. One has a degree, and 2 of them have degrees. Yeah. They're hard work.
I hear Mama back there setting you straight, man.
That's why she's there. Golly.
Well, I guess I'll interject because you're in a different season than the rest of us are, right? Yours have already gone through. They've left the house.
Yeah,
they've come back and eaten all your food, and they left again. So
sometimes they go over and eat theirs, but
yeah.
But yeah, so I don't. My influence that I can provide is that is staying open with the open communication with the with the families and people around me. Now, you look at my neighborhood, you think it's predominantly white, and it is, but we do have people of color here. We have young kids that have been brought into homes that, like right next door to me, I have two young ladies that are married, and they foster kids, and they end up adopting two of them, and they've got a third one, and it's another topic of conversation. But two of the kids are of color, okay, taken from their homes for who knows what reason. We don't talk about it because it's confidentiality. I know that in one case was drugs. But down the street, we have two wonderful young girls that I've watched grow since they were like in, I don't know, 6th grade, 5th grade. And now they're both going into high school now, and watch them develop and get them involved with communication, with talking with older people. That's another thing that the young people, I can recall, you couldn't carry on a conversation with a young person. They were, they didn't know how to communicate with older people. I mean, it was like it was a blank stare. You try to joke with them or something like that, blank stare. And now, oh great, now you got the social media where they're down like this all the time. I'm surprised their necks aren't cooked like that all the time. It's just, they're missing this. They're missing this.
Contact, yeah.
Contact. And that's why I try to impress on in my neighborhood is contact with people. And that's why I like my neighborhood, because we're all pretty communicative. We communicate pretty well together, and we respect each other's rights. And that's my 2 cents.
I like it. Appreciate that, man. Mr. Hill, talk to me. I see you back there. You stewing. You got something on your mind. Well, you got something on your mind, man. No, yeah. Talk to us. Talk to us, Georgia Tech. Talk to us.
I mean, I understand what you're saying, and it's true, because, like you say, it is harder to communicate with a lot of the young kids today, because it's always about the 140 characters, however long it's supposed to be with a tweet or a Snapchat or something. Because it's like, if it's not on Snapchat, it's not on Twitter, it's not true. So that's kind of one of the ways they communicate. But I mean, it's hard to find common ground, but you need to, and it's like just for the last 6 years being a high school coach, that was a different experience for me. Just again, learning how to communicate with the young, trying to get through to them and understand what's your point of view, and trying to have open conversations with them. And it's not hard. You just got to put in extra work. I guess it was the same way with us without the phones. But
yeah, and see that's why I wanted you to interject, right? Because you're a sports coach. You're a very influential person in those young men's lives that are out there. Yeah. You got them out there running routes, and you got them doing those things, but they spend a lot more time with you sometimes than they do with other folks, and they'll probably share more things happening in their social lives with Coach probably than they will mom or dad. So I mean, that's why I definitely wanted you to go.
From time to time they do. I mean, but then, like I said, you have to find a line too that you can't cross with those conversations. And when they do get kind of want to get too deep, that's like, no, that's a conversation you need to have with your parents. I can't give you a certain way to try to handle something. You need to talk with somebody that knows that situation a little bit more in and out. And it's going to be able to help you more, because I can help you to a certain extent, but it's about what mom and dad can do for you.
That's fair, and I appreciate that, and I can respect that. Tosh, you got two boys in your house that listen at you that are eating all your food. They probably at somebody's tennis court right now or whatever. But
no, the 16-year-old made it home while we were talking.
Okay.
He popped in, so yeah, he made it home. One of the things, so to get to your question though about what are we talking about with them? So like you and Jen, we've had the talk, right? We've talked about how do you handle if the cop pulls you over, all that. You can't do the same thing that your white friends are doing, goofing off in the grocery store, all those kind of stories. But there's a couple of different nuances. So the 16-year-old, his girlfriend's white, and her father's a first responder. And I'll be honest with you, the first couple of times he went over there, I was like, okay, are there Confederate flags? Because we live in the South. Are there MAGA hats? Because we live in the South.
Yeah.
And he was like, I don't think so. So we've had to get to know them, right? And get to know them at a different level. But the same thing, you know, when I ask him, what are the conversations you're having with her? Does she understand what it means to go out in public with you? Things like that. So it's a little bit different dynamic. With Zave, his little best friend was over here, and they call themselves Salt and Pepper because they're 13. And
nip that in the bud. You might want to nip that one. Yeah.
It's their football name.
That's
Okay.
And we were just talking about in general, and I looked at his little friend and I said, you know, you better have his back if anything happens out in public, right? Like, you need to be his ally. You need to be the one that steps in front because they're just going to see a little black boy. They're not, you need to be the one. And I got you, Miss Tasha. So the conversation's a little bit different with them. Like I said, we talked about earlier, Zave is super social. He has friends of every ethnicity, but one of the things that I've talked about in a different moms group is it's interesting that like the kids come to our house, right? We don't go to their house. Like, you know, even when there's that comfort level of when you talked about not just what are you doing on a local level and how are you talking to your kids, it's what is the exposure that we're giving them that they see our lives the same. We haven't solved for that by any means because frankly, we're at a baseball field or a football field or tennis court every single weekend. But that's something that I've really started to try and think about is, you know, our kids fortunately are very mannerable and people love them. So they're welcome just about anywhere that they go amongst their friend group. And many of their friends come over here as well. But as adults, we don't interact with them other than to make sure that you're not creepy and that I trust my kid with you. But you're not coming over to see my lifestyle. I'm not going over to your lifestyle. So I think that that's something that we can model a little bit better for our kids moving forward. But Emmett, who I think I've posted more, I've tagged him on more social media posts than he's ever made. You know, in the last couple of weeks, he's made several statements about the unrest. Zave, who is super social on social media, he's made several statements. They get it. They know what's going on. They watch the news. They can have conversations about it. So we just keep the dialogue open and try and make sure that we're as open with them as we can be. And hopefully they feel safe enough to be open with us about how they're feeling in this space. Because, you know, it's got to be scary for them too when they have a different perspective, right?
Yeah. I mean, the kids today are more resilient than I think we give them a lot of credit, but the kids today are pretty resilient, and they see and they know they're for the most part they're making the right decisions. They're making informed decisions. Let me say that. I mean, you can say social media is brutal, and again, no one has more than a 3-second span of attention. Look, we've been online for an hour and a half now. We were only supposed to go online for 60 minutes, but you know, when you're talking about something like this that matters, you go a little bit longer. But the fact that they've got Facebooks, the Twitters, the Snapchats, the TikToks, whatever the case may be, and they're getting bombarded with information, they're absorbing that, and they're making decisions based on information, be it right, be it wrong, but they have the information readily available to them. So bless them for that. And
hey, let me add one thing too. One of the, like Kelly, one of our friends, she's one of our baseball moms and football moms too. She came to me and Tasha last week before last, and she was trying to get more of a leadership program, in not necessarily from us, but with the kids in general, trying to find good solid leaders out of each class, freshmen, sophomore, juniors, seniors, from both the two schools that we're associated with, Allerton and Harrison. So it's I think that helps too, as far as getting them more, not necessarily role models as older people, but more in their peer groups. And they'll see that it ain't always like you were saying, young kids on the court don't want to have that live fast, die young type mentality. And that's what started too, though, because you see yourself a certain way, then it's harder to kind of fight that systematic racism and everything else if you don't see yourself as deserving to be, where it's not cool for you to come at me like this. I understand who I am. I know what I'm about. You know what I'm saying? I'm polite. I'm a young person that respects all, and I'm able to do the things I want to do because this is how I carry myself. And I think that's helping too. So the more we see of that, like I say, like you say, they're using Twitter, they're using TikTok, they're using all this stuff to kind of communicate better. And like you say, they're coming, I think, more from a perspective of knowledge, more so than anger.
That's a good point. I like that. I mean, I think that's a good way to summarize that whole thing. I mean, I've in back rooms, I've said I've given up on society, and it has nothing to do with all of this. But I'm hopeful for this next generation, and I think that they are going to be okay. I think they're going to be okay. They're going to have their challenges like everyone is.
James, we have a 17-year-old niece who keeps sending us, either memes or TikToks or whatever. And she said, I'm proud of my generation. We've got this. And
you know what? That's all right. That's all right. I mean, I appreciate that. That's good. Let me take it and again be cognizant of time. I want to give everyone the opportunity to give their closing remarks. Look, we had a heartfelt discussion today, and we went all over the place, but we were focused. Let me start with you, Kelly. Just from a closing perspective, is there anything more that you wanted to bring to the audience and bring to the panel?
No, I think you covered it all really well.
Awesome, thank you. JJ, let's hear from the man down in Orange County. Is right Orange County, right? I forgot.
Yeah.
Let me get it. I want to get it right. I know Huntington Beach, Orange County. I don't know. I want to get it right. I don't want to call you from the wrong hood. Okay.
That's
okay.
in Orange County.
Okay.
So
I don't know.
Yeah, that's all good, man. I would say continue education, but not just education just for the sake of education. Like, encourage everyone to continue to see what's actually going on, understand why it's going on, and act on it as well too. Like, if we're not doing our own soul searching of how we have biases and also realizing like what narratives we're believing, we're not going to make progress. So I think continue education with the heart of the posture of learning, seeing, understanding, but also acting on that education would be my encouragement and final thoughts.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Stark.
Yes, sir. Like you said, education, whatever angle that you want to attack it that way. Whether it's you're setting the example and leading the way, do it that way. Whether you grab one person and talk with that person, change their mind a little bit, and then plant that seed and let it fester there and grow. It's like, I got my buddy, the old fart here. So he was coming on. I'm like, no, you were blowing up my phone. So you're going to be on the next one. I'll be right next to you. And here we are, So, but yeah, lead by example if you can. If that's all you can do it that way.
Yep. I won't call you an old fart. I'll call you by your proper name.
You can call me anything, just don't call me late for dinner, man. That's all.
I love it. I love it.
I'm with Marvin again. Leading by example is a big part. We all have to do as especially adults. It's a great hurdle because so many people who have been brought up a particular way, all you can do is plant a seed. Let them know that it's not acceptable by you, but don't get in a fight over it. Keep your emotions level. There's a lot of feelings here. I can't help the way people feel. My feelings are mine, yours are yours. We all have individual ways that come about, and go on a level field of knowledge and a degree of patience. And again, the example in education is a big part of it, and it's got to be truth. you got to have truth. You got to have, and truth will bring about trust. And that's about the best I can pull in. And lastly, hey, again, sorry for the rambling. You got a lot of things going up in this squash here, and it's not always itemized, and I go on fucking tangents. So, and
it's all good, man.
And I hope if I said anything, I hope it.
There you go. It shows the love, and then I put a camera and a microphone on you, and
this relationship didn't just happen. It took work, because when we first got together, there was a little headbutting going on, and his head's a whole lot bigger than mine. So yeah.
I love it. I love it. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you. Now, hey, Jen, talk to us about what your closing thoughts are.
So a couple things, I think something that you just said, it's that whole idea of speak your truth. And there's a quote from Oprah that something about speak your truth. It's the only thing that we have. And we actually have that quote hanging in our little office where our kids do their homework sometimes. But I think I've just been reflecting a lot on the fact that as a white woman who, as my husband said, I think I'm pretty woke. But I think that I'm just realizing that I have so much to learn, and that for everyone, it's so important to be listening and learning and just having an open heart and open mind to the uncomfortable conversations. So yeah, that's my takeaway.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Ladies first, Tosh. I'm not getting in trouble. No, I'm not getting in trouble. I'm being respectful to the ladies in the room. So,
I think Jen said it well. Being comfortable having uncomfortable conversations, whether it's with your neighbor, your coworker, your best friend, or even your kids. It's really being open to the dialogue, which I don't think we've had the space and the energy to do in the past. As we do now. If there's anything positive to come out of the most recent set of tragedies, it's that it's opened the dialogue. So I think that's the last bit, is that at least we're having conversations now. So thank you for giving us a forum.
Yeah.
I can't say it any better. I think that's a lot of what's going on too. Smart.
you just defer to the missus, right? I always say I may wear the pants, but Jen holds the belt, and and that's how we made it through almost, is it 20? Shouts out to 20 years. Woo. Okay.
Yeah.
Look, to the panel, thank you very much for your time. Right, your participation and your words. Thank you to everyone that tuned in. Hopefully, this was a valuable use of. That's about 90 minutes of your day, and you either learned something or you took something that you can use for positive change in the days ahead. There will be a part 3 of this discussion, looking at 3 or 4 weeks from now, where we'll just completely open the lines to everyone that wants to get on video and have that opportunity to dialogue, converse. I'll bring back the participants from both panels. So we will take care of that. I will not have any logistic issues. I will make sure that if I need to have up to 100 or so folks on the screen at one particular time, we will do that. So this conversation needs to happen. This is healing. This just needs to happen, I think, for not just us, but again, now the numbers are growing. And I'll look at the metrics, and that's what I'll do behind the scenes from an analytical perspective. But our conversation has reached a wide swath of our social communities, and that's a good thing, because honestly, I think once we log off, we're going to talk more. You're going to talk more. People are going to share, and again, it's going to have that dialogue. So stay tuned for the notice on that session. Follow Hicks New Media on Facebook. Make sure you receive the notifications on when that is published. With that, again, I just want to say thank you to everyone. Take care of one another. God bless.